All right, guys, today we're going to do the first road trip. We're going to do about 400 miles of highway driving. Curious to see highway driving impressions, fuel economy, comfort, ergonomics, and I'm really curious to see, I'm going to play with drive modes and exhaust sounds and see what the decibel meter readings look like. So I'm going to load the boys up and we're going to get some other footage while we're there, which you'll like. We're going to push this bad boy a little bit today. We're going to break this thing in the right way today. One of the things I've found out, this doesn't have a fuel economy page. I've been playing around. All it's got is different tripometers, but we filled the tank up with fuel and we got about 67 miles so far in this tank, which puts us at about 14.7 miles per gallon. So I'll be curious to see what it does the rest of the trip now on this 200 mile drive. So let's do this. All right, so we are in the Bronco Raptor. What do I think so far on the highway about driving mannerisms and everything? Well, it's got road noise as expected, just because, you know, removable top and kind of a flat panel windshield is going to catch a lot of air. Aerodynamics are not ideal. But actually, I just did some reviews recently of the Rubicon Wrangler, and I don't think it's any worse than the Wrangler, and it might be a touch better. I can tell you the interior ergonomics. This steering wheel is really nice. I really like the steering wheel. I like the comfort of it. I like the thickness of it. I'm glad it's got soft padding on the elbows here. It's not bad there, as well as right here. So in general, for me, all the touch points for me are really good. The seats, even though these are the base seats feel good. One thing that I'm a little bummed about on the Bronco, and it's not a big deal probably to most people, there's no fuel economy instantaneous readout that I can find on this thing. And I've been looking around on the internet last night. All you have is tripometers. So that's kind of a bummer. But what is super cool is it does have the performance gauge just like the Raptor R. Amazing. I think this is so cool. What a great view. So I'm excited to see that on the Bronco Raptor. Let's pull out the decibel meter reading and see where we're at. I'm really curious because it's pretty loud. All right, so here we go. About 70 decibel. I mean, granted, I've got kids toys on in the background, their iPads. They're not very loud. I think the road noise is actually louder, but it is on right now. Now let's move it up and see how it is up here. A little bit louder by the roof, no surprise. And we'll go down lower. So about 72 decibels, not terrible at 70 miles per hour. I'll play around with the exhaust settings too and see if we can find if it makes a difference. Notice I got a little louder in sport mode. A little bit louder yet with Baja. Now let's go to quiet mode. Yeah, definitely noticeable. Not as noticeable as the Raptor R as to be expected, just because it's a V8 and super loud exhaust. But it definitely, the valves do make a difference. So more importantly, what do I think about the comfort of the vehicle? Lane keeping system works really good. And this is just the base model, Copilot 360. So I think the Lux package would actually work a little better. I like the display. It reminds me very much of my 21 F-150. All the ergo controls, everything seems to work pretty good there. Steering feel, pedal feel, brake feel, really good. That's an area where I think this is a huge improvement over the Wrangler, because the Wrangler having the solid axles, I just don't think it tracks as great going down the road. But everything else feels really good on this thing. The other thing I'm really pleased to know is the handling. These shocks, I don't know if it's because it's more equally loaded, like when I say like weight bias, like it's more 50-50 front weight to rear weight bias in the vehicle. But this thing takes the bumps better than my Raptor F-150, I think, going down the road. I just watched the mannerisms when I hit an expansion joint on the highway. I don't notice the rear end kick out ever. It just feels very balanced in that. So I'll be curious if I notice that in the dunes as well. The other thing it's taken some getting used to for me is this view over the front end with with the raised front fenders on both corners. I freaking love it. It reminds me of the old school Corvettes back in the 60s, how you could see the bulge in the corners. I just think that looks so neat. They did a really good job on this. I have to say, so far, I'll be real curious to see how it does in the dunes today. This is definitely the funnest, neatest, most unique vehicle I've ever owned. I've never had a Bronco before, and I've only had convertible like Mustangs and things like that in the past. This is just awesome because the usability on this vehicle is so high, being four-wheel drive and having a little bit of a tow rating. So unfortunately, I cannot give you a instantaneous readout at 73 miles an hour. But what I can share with you is the RPMs look to be about 2,200 RPMs. I started this trip at 14.7 miles per gallon. So for the entire trip average over 80 miles to go up tells me I'm getting above 15 on the highway, which is pretty good because the Raptor would probably be about 14 at these speeds. The other thing is I like how it's got the adjustable menus for what you can see in your center gauges like the F-150 Raptor as well. Okay, so let's look at some of the measurements going down the road. You can see I got a little slight climb right now, and I'm making about 6 pounds of boost, but generally going down the road at like 75 or so, it's almost at 0 pounds of boost. You see the oil pressure is pretty similar to the Raptor R. Engine oil temps, I've watched this hover between 208 and 212. The faster I go, the more this temperature goes up. Trans temp 186, that's pretty low. That's actually pretty good. Cylinder head temperature, I always think this is a funny measurement that Ford uses for coolant temperature, but it is coolant temperature because when you go to the performance view, check out in the upper left-hand side, 194 is the coolant temp. And there we go, we're on a flat now, 0 PSI. We got our intake charge temps at 96 degrees, which our outside air is 61. I have generally found on all my Raptors with 3.5 EcoBoost, I see between a 30 and a 50 degree delta with this number here and the ambient air. And this is the same with the 3 liter in the Raptor Bronco. So that's pretty good. I would say overall driving manners, to be fair, I think this thing actually takes the expansion joints and stuff a little bit smoother than the F-150 Raptor, which is surprising. I did not expect it to actually be this smooth, but it actually is. Comfort-wise, how would I say? I think it rides actually surprisingly just as good, and maybe some cases a little bit better than F-150 Raptor, especially when you hit expansion joints. The rear end is more planted. Cornering, hands down, the cornering on this thing is way better than the F-150 Raptor. You don't get all that body roll. It just seems to be so much better set up than the F-150 Raptor. But you get more road noise. You get more wind noise. I do think that the seats are a little less comfortable than the F-150 Raptor R I just had for sure. But I also got the base seat, and that was comparing to the high-end Recaro seat. So I don't know how the little more expensive Raptor seat would be. But fun factor driving this thing is just a riot. It's absolutely a lot of fun. And what you see from the decibel meter reading, recording earlier, it was about, I think about 3 or 4 decibel more than my Raptor R. I need to go back and look at that footage. I'll kind of compare that. But fuel economy is pretty decent. I'm hovering right about 15, and I've been pretty much cruise at 80 most of the trip. If I did that same with a 37 package Raptor, I'd probably be about 13. So it's about 2 miles per gallon better there. And if I did that with Raptor R, it'd probably be about 11 and a half, 12. So it's quite a bit better than Raptor R. And just generally, the power on this thing's pretty good. And I'm glad it's 87 octane. So we're gonna fill up here in a second before we get on the dunes. And I'll be real curious to see where we end up with hand calculated versus computer. All right, just filled up. Now let's see what hand calculated's like. All right, let's see where we're at for fuel economy now. Got 258.6 miles divided by 18.1. So not too far off, 0.3 miles per gallon off hand calculated. So now we're gonna go have some fun. First tank in though, not bad. I just filled it up with premium, gonna be off-road, so I don't wanna run 87, even though you can run 87 on a Bronco Raptor. Okay, gonna do the return trip right now. Just filled it up. So we'll see what we get. I just put premium in it. See, we're at 15.1 miles per gallon, 2 hours, 15 minutes. But what I wanna focus on is look at your temperatures. 210 oil temp, oil pressure looks decent, trans temp, coolant temp, everything looks good. Now we look at our coolant temp and our air intake temp. We got 91 degree air intake. It's 58 degrees outside. So this just proves a point. About 30 degrees typically is what you see more. But then when you start pushing it off road, you'll see that go up. I'll be curious to see once I'm done doing the hand calculation, how far off we are with the fuel economy. This last trip said 14.7, it ended up being 14.3. This is saying 15.1, so that's pretty consistent. And we've been using cruise most of the time. A little bit windy, not terrible. One last fill up, 30-second method. 12.9. Okay, 180 miles, 180.5 miles, 12.92 gallons. Let's do some math. Well, in typical Ford fashion, the computer, from my experience, is rarely accurate. This says 15.0, but hand calculated was 14. Not a big deal, but it is 1 mile per gallon less. But, you know, we were cruising. I mean, we were pretty much 80 most of the trip home. Not terrible, not great, but this thing is shaped like a brick, so not too bad. All right, guys, so that kind of sums up our first road trip with the Bronco Raptor. Really happy with it. What a riot to drive. The Raptor R was a lot of fun, but this is a whole different animal. It doesn't have the power, clearly. It's just so rugged, and I don't know how to explain it. It's just rugged, but it is a lot of fun. As you can see behind me, you see the flag mount? Next video, going to be a POV little dune use. We will see how this Bronco Raptor compares to the previous Raptors we owned. So if you're interested in that video, definitely check that out, coming out soon. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.